Today on Monson Made This, I am making a dish inspired by leftovers from one of my favorite restaurants. Today I'm going to be making orange tofu and fried rice. I'm going to be serving it inside of a tortilla with avocado and a Sriracha coconut sauce. So this is all inspired by a restaurant here in town. I brought home some orange chicken leftovers and some white rice and ended up throwing it together and putting it in the tortilla, and it was amazing. And it was a hit on Instagram, so I'm gonna try to make everything from scratch here. So taking the idea of what I had in those leftovers and putting it into a burrito, but just making it all from scratch. So let's get started. First thing I wanna make is the orange sauce for the orange tofu. And I wanna start out by zesting an orange here. This is just a navel orange. If you didn't have a fresh orange, you just had orange juice on hand, you can use that for this recipe. But I prefer the fresh orange so that I can get the zest. So I want the zest from about half of this orange. Looks like I have just about a teaspoon and a half maybe. And I'm just gonna be putting everything into a measuring cup here just to make it easier. And then of this orange, I need a 1/4 cup of the juice, which the last time I did this, it seemed about like 1 orange seemed to do the trick. All right, got a bit messy there, but there is a 1/4 cup of orange juice. Next, I have a 1/4 cup of brown sugar and a 1/4 cup of vegan white sugar. I have some white wine or rice wine vinegar, Bragg's liquid aminos, and water. I'm adding a bit of chili flake. If you don't like heat, obviously you can eliminate that. A little bit of toasted sesame oil. And I'm going to be grating 2 cloves of garlic. You could obviously just finely chop these if you don't have a microplane. Oops, that'll be okay. And then we want about a 1/2 teaspoon worth of grated ginger. Now I just keep my ginger in the freezer, and it makes it a lot easier just to grate with a microplane when I need it. The full recipe for this is going to be linked below. And the last thing is 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Just want to mix this up until all of the cornstarch is mixed in. The sugar, there's quite a bit of sugar in this recipe, and that is not going to dissolve at all in here, so you just want to make sure that the lumps are out of the cornstarch and that's fully incorporated. And once that's done, we're going to take it over to the stove and heat it up and get it thick. I have a large pan here on the stove. Doesn't necessarily have to be this big, and I'm going to be putting this pan onto medium heat. Pour all of my mixture, making sure to get any of the sugar off the bottom. I guess I could have just pretty much mixed everything into the pan, but I like to do it in a separate dish just to make sure that I get all of the cornstarch mixed in. So I want to watch this. I don't want to walk away too far because this will actually happen fairly quickly, especially in a pan where it's this shallow. So we're just going to bring it up to a bit of a simmer. I want to stir it to make sure none of the sugar sticks to the bottom. And in just a couple of minutes, it's going to not be cloudy anymore, and it's going to simmer and thicken up. So just kind of hang out and stir it until that happens. All right, so this has been going for a couple of minutes here. As you can see, it's really thick, and it's no longer cloudy. The cornstarch is gone, or not gone, but thickened up, and it's no longer cloudy. So I don't really know what to say here. Basically, this is what you're looking for. It's a little bit thick here. We'll see later if I need to thin it down, but this is gonna be enough to coat all of our tofu, and this can just kind of set aside for a little bit. The sauce is finished, it's hanging out back on the stove. Now it's time to take care of the tofu. Now I am going to be deep frying today. If you wanted to make this an air fried version, I will link the recipe video for my air fried tofu and cauliflower. So you could just do the air fried version, use this sauce, and you can make this recipe pretty much oil free. Additionally, I've made this with cauliflower as well as tofu, and it turned out really well. So if you're not a fan of tofu, you could always sub in cauliflower and it would be incredible. But here I have tofu and it has been draining. I cut it into 1-inch cubes, and I just had it sandwiched in between a towel here just to get some of the extra moisture out. So I'm going to add these to a large bowl that I'm going to be using to coat them in a batter. In this bowl, I have a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour and a 1/2 cup of cornstarch, a teaspoon of baking powder, and I'm just going to be adding a bit of salt into this. This is going to be the mixture that we'll use to make our batter. To that, I'm going to be adding some water, and you're looking for the consistency of kind of a pancake batter. So I'm just going to add water as I go. To be honest, I didn't really keep track of how much water I used when I developed this recipe, so I'll watch this time and let you know. Looks like we need just a bit under a cup of water. Got a few lumps, I'll work those out, but you can see again it's the texture of kind of maybe a thinner pancake batter. To the tofu here, I'm going to pour over this batter. And then lightly toss them to coat. I've preheated my oil up to about 375, and I have my tofu here all covered in the batter. And I'm going to be adding them one at a time into the oil. And you don't want to put them in a big clump because they will stick together. And these are just going to fry in here until they're golden brown. It might take a few minutes depending on how much moisture is still in your tofu. You can see I'm kind of taking them from the bottom where a little bit of the batter has pooled just to make sure that they're each fully coated. Don't overcrowd your fryer. You're going to have to work in some batches here. Or unless you do this on the stovetop, and then you can put more oil and have more surface area to do it. So admittedly, these aren't getting as brown as I would have hoped, but I'm pretty sure that they're done. So I'm just going to be lightly shaking them off here, and then I'm going to be putting them onto a rack. And then I'll just continue frying these in batches until they're all done, and then we'll sauce them up. So I'm going to take the last batch out of the fryer here. Now we're ready to sauce. So I'm going to add all of my cooked tofu into the pan with the sauce. Now you could have kept your tofu in the oven if you wanted to make sure that it stayed warm, but I feel like the amount of time that actually elapsed here, everything's still a good temperature. All right, and I'm just going to toss my tofu in this amazing orange sauce. Now remember, we're not just stopping here, we're going to take these all the way to burrito land. So I'm just going to set these onto a plate here in just a moment, because I do need this pan to make the fried rice. All right, I'm just going to plate this up. Again, I'm really only doing this because I need the pan to make my fried rice. But look how beautiful it is. You could serve it up just like this. You don't even have to put it in a tortilla. Next thing I'm going to make here is the fried rice, and this was inspired by me just kind of throwing things together when I had a little takeout container of white rice. So the first thing I want to do is take some oil. This is a tablespoon of, I think it's sunflower oil, just a neutral oil, and a teaspoon of sesame oil. And I'm going to put this into a pan on high heat. My pan is non-stick, and that's actually really helpful. Another thing that's really helpful is the rice that I'm gonna be using, which is actually at this point 2 days old. You want it at least 1 day old in the fridge. So this is jasmine rice cooked and then just it's been hanging out in the fridge for 2 days. You really want it dried out like that because it's going to help it to cook to the consistency that you're used to when you've had fried rice. So the oil is warming up here, and I have 2 green onions, which I'm just gonna take the little hairy ends off of, and I'm going to thinly chop the white portion. Now the white portion is actually going to be going into the rice. I've got puppies at my feet. They love the smell of onions, but I never feed it to them. So I'm just gonna cut up the white onion here down to the green part, and this is what's actually gonna go into the oil. And this is the aromatic that's gonna help to season the oil, which will then in turn season the rest of the rice. So I'm gonna just let these onions hang out in the oil for about a minute or so. The one thing I don't want them to do is brown, but already the whole kitchen is fragrant with the smell of the sesame oil, with the onions, so everything's just blending together here. Onions have been going about a minute, and I'm going to grate some garlic in here. Again, if you don't have a microplane, just thinly dice your garlic in here. Now the garlic, as soon as I get it all in here, it's pretty much time to add the other ingredients. We don't want the garlic to brown at all. All right, so I need 1.5 cups of this cooked and cooled white rice. Break it up a little bit. To that, I'm adding some peas. It's about 1/8 cup. And then I have here some Bragg's liquid aminos. And the last thing is just a bit of garlic powder. I feel like that really kicks up the flavor. Now we fry. Last thing I want to do is cut up the green portion, and I want these to be a little bit bigger than the white portion. And I'm just going to toss these into the pan. The rice cooked for about 5 more minutes. So fragrant, beautiful. I've never really cared for cooked carrots, so that's why I only added green things in here. Obviously, if you liked cooked carrots, you could add those to your fried rice as well. Or if you just want to add the tofu to this, it's a perfect base for any fried rice you'd like to make. We have our orange tofu done. We have our fried rice done. Next thing I'm going to make is this sauce, which is kind of just like a Sriracha mayo, but with the addition of some coconut milk to give it an extra layer of flavor. You could use any type of cream base you want if you didn't want to use any mayo, but I'm using the remains of my soy milk mayo from the last recipe video. So I have about 1/2 cup of mayo, and I'm adding just a couple of tablespoons of coconut milk to that. And then just a bit of Sriracha. As always, I'll have the full recipe posted and linked below. And I'm just gonna mix this together. Give it a bit of a taste. It's really good. All right, I'm just gonna put this in another bowl, and then we are ready to make our burritos. It is time to assemble. Here I have some of my homemade tortillas. And admittedly, these are not that large, so in terms of trying to get a burrito out of these, it's really not gonna happen. So I'm just gonna go for a kind of an overstuffed taco. So put a nice layer of my fried rice inside. Stuff smells so good. Some of our orange tofu. Going to add some fresh avocado to the top. Now my avocado was super ripe. I would have rather have made this a nice pretty fan pattern or something, but the thing is so ripe that the skin was not coming off easily. Just a few pieces of avocado. And the last thing is a drizzle of our coconut Sriracha mayo sauce. All right, here we have our leftover inspired orange tofu and fried rice burrito. I'm so excited for this. I have put all of my ingredients in here. We have our leftover inspired orange tofu and fried rice burrito, which I'm gonna try my best to roll up here. I don't know if it'll work. And I am so excited to dig into this. As I said, if you wanted to just make these items, ooh, we're a little bit messy. Make these items individually, not even have them as a burrito. They are incredible on their own, but it's something special to throw it in a tortilla with some extra sauce. So, looks messy, but I'm ready to dig in. Everything is so good on its own, but together, just the flavor combination with these fresh homemade tortillas. I bet my face is a mess, but it's so good. Let me clean up for a second and then I'll say goodbye. All right, well, there you have it. I can't wait to finish this thing. It is so incredible. So you go ahead and make it. Again, if you want to make a less fattening or oil-free variation, go to my other video to see how I made my air-fried tofu or cauliflower. Otherwise, I will see you next week for a brand new video. Thank you for subscribing if you already have. If you haven't, please do click subscribe. Like this, give it a thumbs up if you do like it, and share this around so that the channel can grow. All right, well, you have a great week. Enjoy this recipe, and I will see you next week with a brand new video. So I'm gonna finish eating.